Welcome, everyone, to the Anthony and Todd Show, a weekly podcast that critiques and memes music. I'm your host, Vincent, aka The Melon refused to review this album, and I should have to.
Should have to, like, as well.
I don't understand this, aka you were written for me. And I'm joined by my ever-attentive co-host, my best friend.
Refused, and Melon in his Why You Know review talked about why he didn't want to review this album.
My ever-attentive co-host, my best friend, my pal, my amigo, my Drook, Jonathan.
AKA listening to Logic puts me at my crisis point.
And this is episode 116 of the Anthony and Todd Show, an episode we would like to call...
Vincent refused to do any work for this episode.
I'm really calling it in. I'm phoning it in for this episode because I do not care whatsoever about any of these albums, really deeply at least, because at least there's one of these I kind of care about, but like not really.
This was a very sad week for me.
This is what we needed, kind of, in a way,
because last week was so good.
Last week was really good. I did 3 episodes last week, and for a majority of it, I had really positive things to say about a lot of the albums.
And then this was me picking a bunch of albums based on various reasons, and I'll go over each reason why I picked.
Do you know why I let you do that this week?
So you didn't have to do work?
No, kind of in a way, yes. Also, there was nothing this week.
Yeah.
2, I like every 4 to 5 months to let you pick, like, a week of all music, so then I can just do whatever I want for the next, like, 4 to 5 months.
Is that how this works?
Yeah, because the last time it was Drala, some punk album I can't remember, and Bad Religion.
Bad Religion was like at least relevant because it was new at that time, and they're like a well-known punk band.
But I let you pick whatever you want, and
Yeah.
the rest of it was like Vincent's top dog. He
Yeah.
has top choice.
Well,
And then you had top choice this week, and then I get another 4 to 5
You need to
months.
let me do this though, because like I bring like semi-relevant albums, and then like sometimes you don't, and then they're like months old, and I still want to review them, but now it's just too fucking late.
Yeah, these are relevant. They're also bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, if there's anything good, you usually tell me about it. And if you say it's really good, we end up reviewing it.
Yeah, and then sometimes it's John times 2 and you end up paying it because you're a piece of shit.
Yeah, I am a piece of shit. I'm not going to hide the fact. Today we're going over the latest albums, or recent albums.
It's the oldest one is from September.
So latest albums from Subhumans with Crisis Point, Heavy Lungs, their latest EP with Measure, and Refused with their latest album War Music. It's all Gregorian chants, getting you to prepare for battle, getting you prepared for battle.
Halo music. They just took the Halo 2 soundtrack and put a new album cover on it. Had some guy scream over it.
I think that's a Halo 3 song, isn't it? I don't think that's Halo 2.
That's Halo
Maybe
2.
it's just all the Halos.
It's all of pretty much every like major part of the main trilogy had like something like that playing over it.
Before we start, if you want to follow the Anthony and Todd Show on Twitter, you can find Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. On various social media, you can find us at Anthony and Todd. If you want to find us on YouTube, youtube.com/the Anthony and Todd Show. And if you want to find us on Patreon and support us monetarily, you can go to patreon.com/the Anthony and Todd Show. Okay. Well, you are Subhuman, so I think you have a lot to say about this latest Subhumans album.
I'm gay. That's homophobic.
No, I said that in a way that you only have one working lung.
Oh,
Hit you right where...
that makes more sense for the next band, Heavy Lung.
No, it's not heavy. It's very light. One of them's very light. It's the non-working
Well, it's
one.
heavy now because of all the scar tissue.
Time to go over the latest Subhumans album, Crisis Point.
All right, so
I'm gonna let you do the intros.
This is me.
This
So
is your week to shine.
This is my week, unfortunately.
Vincent phones it in.
Yes.
Hello, Anthony and Todd Show. I can't come to work today. I'm sick
Sick in the
of
head.
Jonathan's bullshit.
That's fair, actually. So, like I said, I'll go over why I picked each one. Subhumans. Subhumans is a UK anarcho-punk / hardcore punk band from originally 1980 to 1985. That was their heyday. This is a band that I love that era of. I've probably told you, Dead Kennedys is my favorite punk band of all time. What I love about Dead Kennedys the way they mix like pretty straightforward hardcore punk with a ton of humor, great lyrics, a lot of sarcasm in their lyrics, but like just punchy to the point lyrics that have like a lot of satire and like hidden meanings and like layers to the lyrics, while also mixing their hardcore punk with like elements of funk and all these other like forms of like music to create just a truly unique, great sound experience. to the point where like they're not only like a great punk band, they're just a great band, period. Like the likes of like Pink Floyd, Beatles, Dead Kennedys. Like they're just a great band. The Subhumans are kind of like the UK version of the Dead Kennedys, and that they did pretty straightforward hardcore punk. There's a lot of funk influence. They use a lot of like heavy bass lines the same way that the Dead Kennedys did. They had a lot of wit and humor in their work. A lot of similar anarchist themes, just like the Dead Kennedys did. But because during that time in the hardcore punk, America did it better. The Subhumans were not as good as Dead Kennedys, but their first 3 albums I hold in a very similar like high regard as I hold the entirety of the Dead Kennedys' work, early Crass albums, like just as the pinnacle of like punk music. That was back then.
Okay.
But so that's why I picked this, because you know they're an important band for me.
Okay, I'm reading the show notes you wrote, and can you tell me the frontman's name?
The front man of the Subhumans is Dick Lucas.
That's the best. That's a Stephen King name.
That's a Stephen King name.
Oh, speaking of Stephen King,
you found a way.
I found a way. I was looking for a transition for your audio listeners. I put up the photo of Tim Curry's "It" smoking. I needed to find Jonathan bet. I couldn't do it, and he lost the bet.
I was thinking more for Is It a Film? I wasn't thinking for this.
I'll work it into anything.
Okay, fair enough. You have to work it into every album and Is It a Film?
Oh my gosh, I'll try. Try my hardest.
But anyway, so after Subhumans broke up in 1985, Dick Lucas went on to form the anarchist ska punk bands Culture Shock and Citizen Fish.
That's not a real thing.
Which one?
Anarchist ska punk.
It's ska punk with anarchist themes.
That just sounds weird to me.
I mean, like...
I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but it just sounds really weird.
And, like, I guess they hold a good place because I haven't really listened to Culture Shock, but Citizen Fish at least like holds a place as being like one of the few ska punk bands I like actually really like. Along with like...
Citizen Fish is just a regular sized fish, and then you have Real Big Fish, who's the actual real big fish.
So there's like the good ska punk bands are Citizen Fish
Just
and
like
Operation Ivy.
Just the
like,
idea of anarchist ska punk is like just imagining me people. I'm just thinking of like people skanking against capitalism.
Fuck Jeff Bezos. But then the band would reform in 1998 and just become basically a touring band. They would eventually release another album in 2007 with Internal Riot. They're still probably best known for their first album, though, The Day the Country Died, which is just great album, great tracks. My favorite being Mickey Mouse is Dead, which actually isn't like what you'd expect when you think, oh, a punk band made a song called Mickey Mouse is Dead. This is clearly just a ginormous shitting on Disney. Actually, no. It's like shitting on culture because like the whole point is like Mickey Mouse is dead because we made the world so like dark and serious that children can't have happiness anymore. So Mickey Mouse is dead. We stomped him in the head, put a bullet in his brain, shit like that. So like actually like not that negative on Disney, shockingly. Their next 2 albums after their original From the Cradle to the Grave and Worlds Apart, they started like becoming a little more progressive with their sound, not just like short, fast, punchy hardcore, but like started like developing it the same way Dead Kennedys did. Started adding more elements, creating a more unique, diverse sound, and then they broke up.
Yeah.
Which is what happens to most punk bands. Crisis Point, their newest one, it's their 5th studio album, their second one since they've reformed, and it's sad. It's I never actually listened to their 4th one, Internal Riot, because I wasn't aware it existed, because I just assumed they stopped recording after 1985, and in a way I wish they had. But yeah, this is basically what I would expect would happen, unfortunately, if the Dead Kennedys were to reform with like Jello, because he's no longer a part of the touring version of Dead Kennedys because he had a huge falling out with them. But like I feel like if they were to try to record a new album, it would just be very tired sounding, still lyrically like solid, but musically just retreading very old territory with no new major developments, which was sad since that's what they were.
You say lyrically solid. I think this thing's lyrically passable. I don't think it's bad.
No,
I just think it just does enough to where it's unoffensive.
Dead Kennedys would be lyrically solid. Jello is like still a great lyricist. Like he still like writes things for like other artists. And like he does like kind of like features, and he's still a great lyricist. they again, Subhumans never as great as like Dead Kennedys were lyrically, but it's like the lyrics are still the best part of this.
Yeah, I think it's more the personality.
Well, the personality it comes through the lyrics, same way it does with Dead Kennedys.
Anarcho-punk, but it's goofy. It almost has
Yeah.
this weird like pop-punk vibe to it in a sense, or like pop-punk sensibility to it, where it's not like as clean or as catchy as that by any means, but or even that as trying to be forceful down your throat of how just like popular.
Yeah, it hasn't gone full conflict and full crass with its lyrics, where it's just like, this is basically our like communist and anarchist manifesto, but we made it rhyme a little bit.
Yeah,
They haven't gone that far. There's still wit and there's still humor and there's still character in the lyrics, which is what Dick Lucas does so well. And like, unfortunately, like his voice doesn't carry the character it used to when he was younger at all.
It just it comes off as weird, but not weird enough.
Yeah.
He's not like on the opening track, Terrorist and Waiting, he sounds like way behind in the beat. Like he can't keep up with how fast his production is. He sounds like he's suffering on the track.
Yeah.
It's not terrible, but he just sounds very like, again, tired. He can't keep up with a lot of this production, which kind of creates this like novelty like sound in this way, because it's just like it has this weird like tired dimension to it, which is interesting, but it isn't good.
No.
I think for a lot of this there's interesting ideas. Like none of this is like offensive or by any means, but I think it's just so middle of the road for a lot of this that it's not experimental enough, it's not risque enough, and it's not really catchy either. It's trying its hardest. I can tell that effort put into this, but it went into this, but it just didn't came out as kind of just passable. And it's not long. It's only 26 minutes. I think it's very easy. This is how the length of a punk album should be. It isn't,
or the length of a fucking Heavy Luds EP. It's at least 6 minutes longer than the Heavy Luds EP, and it has twice as many tracks.
Yeah, it doesn't feel bloated. It doesn't. It just feels tired.
Yeah,
that's the biggest thing, and it's missing that some risque quality or some deeper soundscapes, because a lot of it seems a little bit flat.
Yeah, the bass lines are not as like deep and like heavy as just palpable. Like their old bass lines, you fucking felt them. Like they were just so like rich with how they played their bass, and there was not a single bass line that hooked me the way that they used to in this album. And I think that's just, everything here just seems like the weakest parts of all their old stuff, but like it's none of the like strongest parts to carry it through.
It's just missing a lot of texture for me personally. It's just middle of the road. I don't think it's really
it's not bad.
It's not bad. It's not good either.
It's not fucking Bad Religion's comeback.
I think I like this better than Bad Religion's last album, but I don't think it's that good either.
There's some good things, like the Punk Machine idea. Like
I really like that track. That's my favorite track on here.
These, like the Dead Kennedys, Subhumans, Crass, all those bands always were very critical of punk culture, and like it's how it was basically becoming its own like commercial enterprise, completely like torn away from its roots and the DIY and what it's supposed to be about. And I don't think any punk band has really like hit the nail on the head with that topic as well as Subhumans did on that track, like in a long time.
Terrorist and Waiting, I like the idea of how we're talking about how like anyone can be a terrorist at almost any moment. It's a sense of paranoia, but it's also a sense about how like,
and there's even like idea of like how like everything's being redefined to the point where what being a terrorist is borderline meaningless, because like everybody, like any one group is just now a terrorist. Like how like we're trying to identify like Antifa as terrorists, how Black Lives Matter was being identified as terrorists. Like anybody can be just called
Juggalos.
a terrorist. Juggalos were a terrorist. Like literally, if you just call anybody a terrorist, like the term is borderline meaningless.
Adam. I don't know. I couldn't say that for some reason. I'm big dumb right now. I'm phoning it in.
You're big dumb all the time.
Adam Screen War I found to be like almost like a Doctor Strangelove like moment. It's not as weird as that, but it has a sense of novelty when talking about nuclear weapons. Which is interesting. But like that's all I really got to say about this.
99%'s got a good like just working class rising up anthem. Like I said, like the lyrics are just most solid part of this. They're pretty passable to good. And then everything else is just, unfortunately, just sounds kind of tired, and it's nowhere near as hard hitting, as punchy, or as catchy, or as unique and like ground setting and groundbreaking and trend setting as it used to be, and it's just kind of, it's sad. And like it's exactly what I expected it to be. I didn't expect Subhumans to come back with anything near as like amazing or as relevant or like earth shattering as their old stuff, but like it's still sad.
Yeah.
Yeah. At least it's better than Age of Unreason.
Yeah. Keep in mind, all scores if you tell me this right now. I'm feeling I'm like middle of the road.
You get a 4 lyrically, a 7 for lyrics, so you're average of like 5.5.
Okay. Wow. You look like you're out of breath from that review.
It's all my heavy lungs.
You must have some heavy lungs. Time to go over the latest Heavy Lungs EP, the Measure EP.
It's not called The Measure, it's just Measure.
But like if you tried to identify it out of the crowd, it would be the Measure EP.
It's the new Heavy Lungs EP, Measure. Fuck you. Oh, so Heavy...
You have to do intros, yeah.
So Heavy Lungs, they're a punk band from Bristol. They're fronted by Danny Nedelko. They're currently signed to Joe Talbot's label, Bailey Records. We did a much more in-depth intro for this band when we covered their first EP all the way back in like, what was it, February?
Maybe March.
March, yeah. It was one of our like earliest reviews. Yeah. We covered it pretty heavily back then, talking about it, how like Danny Nedelko is like Joe Talbot's best friend. He was featured in the Idols track Danny Nedelko. He's from the Ukraine. This is their third EP. Let's just get into it.
You don't want to give him more of an introduction?
We gave them a big ass intro. Okay, fine. Heavy Lungs is their, like I said, they're from Bristol. Bristol is currently one of the like hubs of like the kind of burgeoning, blossoming like new music scene in the UK. There's some good punk bands coming out of there. There's some good indie bands. Some just good music coming out of Bristol right now.
Give me names.
Idols.
Okay. Is that it?
Yeah, that's all I'm gonna fucking say. That's all you deserve. If you want to know more, just fucking Google Bristol music. You'll probably get a shit. I think Yakov may have started.
Yeah.
I think Drala came from there, so like that's one like little notch against it. But like, they're like I said, fronted by Danny Nedelko, who's best friends with Idols frontman Joe Talbot. Hence the reason they were able to sign to Bailey Records pretty easily, and they're one of like 3 bands signed to that record right now.
Along with Crows,
which is just okay, and Lice.
Okay.
I like Lice. The Crow album wasn't good, but their earlier work before the album was pretty good. They're a great mix of like the modern like British punk theme with a lot of like throwback hardcore elements. Not like going back to like 80s hardcore where it's about like just screaming your lungs off over like a wailing guitar, but like back to like some minor threat hardcore, some like Black Flag, just like the roots of hardcore.
Okay. So going over this Measure EP.
How long is the measuring?
It's 20 minutes.
20 minutes?
20 minutes. It takes them 20 minutes to measure.
Gotcha.
They got a ruler out and they just sat above it trying to figure out how it works.
Yeah.
For about 20 minutes, and they realized, oh, you just identify it by the number.
Yeah.
And that's how long it is.
But they only found it was half full.
Oh my gosh. The opening track's half full if you don't get that pun. So going over this, I think Danny Nedelko is the thing that stands out the most.
As always.
Because he's more like just, there's a track towards the end of their last EP where he seemed pretty yelpy.
Yeah.
And it's also part of his accent too.
Yeah.
And it makes the yelpiness stand out. He's really yelpy on this.
Yeah.
Which I like, but the production's more clean.
It's too clean this time.
The drums are very big this time around.
Yeah.
They're really huge, especially TOTP stands out where they just really are massive.
Yeah.
A Bit of a Birthday has these really nice snares though that I gotta. It is almost 808 like in a sense. It's because it's clean. It's really flat and clean.
Yeah.
That's why it gives like an 808 impression, but it's not. It works out really really well, and also the guitars tune in, and the buildup of A Bit of a Birthday sounds really really nice.
Yeah.
But I think overall it just doesn't seem as energetic. It also seems a bit longer than their last one in presence, and also I feel like they seem like they have a larger budget on this one, but it seems less impressive. And I feel like if they had more material, maybe it would have been
This is
like if it were in a studio album
Yeah.
range, it would have been more impressive.
yeah. It's clear that they have like more tools at their disposal to make this because it sounds so much cleaner. But like, unfortunately, by doing that, they've kind of lost the energy outside of like Danny Nedelko's has always been and will always be like the defining like trait of this band.
Yeah.
His voice is just so unique. The way he presents himself is so energetic and just full of energy. He will always be the defining trait of this band, so long as he's a part of this band. And like everything else has always been like it's passable, it's good, it's nice throwbacks to like hardcore and other forms of punk, but it's never had done anything that's like stood out beyond like how well it can work with Danny.
Yeah.
And unfortunately on this album or EP compared to our last EP where this is so clean, a lot of like the grime and the energy, because like Danny Nedelko does not have a clean voice.
Yeah,
it's a very
yelp.
yelpy, kind of gross, but like in an endearing, charming way.
Punk David Byrne.
Yeah, voice. And so having a grimier, less clean production behind him makes sense. It adds to the charm, it adds to the impression and the sound of the music. When you clean that production up, it doesn't fit anymore as well as it used to. Like, it's still like technically well written and like well played punk hardcore throwback music, but it's too clean to be with Danny. Danny needs a grime to sing over because it fits so perfectly with him.
Yeah.
And so like even though his energy is like the same, the energy of this EP is just lowered because the energy like of his backing production doesn't fit anymore.
Yeah. I think the best two tracks are the last two tracks.
Yeah.
A bit of a birthday, which is just him kind of taking the piss out of his birthday, saying he doesn't want to be your birthday boy.
I don't
He
want to
doesn't-
be your birthday boy. I just want to wear my birthday suit.
Yeah. And then Pacemaker talking about how you should just accept the fact that we're all aging
Yeah.
and there's nothing you can really do about it.
Yeah.
But like, there's nothing super.
There's nothing bad here.
Nothing
It's
fundamentally bad.
It's just
I
they
think
need to-
sometimes it's very hard to tell what he's saying because he's very
yelpy. Very yelpy.
but I don't think there's anything super bad on here. I just think that the
it's
biggest
too clean.
It's too clean, and that they've shown me more impressive work than this.
Yeah. Their previous two EPs before this one were better. They had a lot more energy, a lot more character, and they were just a lot more fun to listen to. I've gone back and listened to those EPs countless times because I love them so much. This one, even having to review it, I've only gone back and listened to like a small amount of times.
Yeah.
Which when I did the review for their last EP, I listened to that like at least a dozen times before that review.
Yeah. Keep in mind those scores if you're telling me this right now, I'm feeling not as impressive as their last EP out of 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't give the last one an actual number, so like giving this one a number feels unfair. So
We refuse to give it a number. And I'm also refusing to do this review.
at all, just at all.
I'm just going to sit quiet.
You're supposed to completely quiet.
Time to go over to the latest Refuse album, War Music.
War.
What
What
is
is it good for? This album, absolutely nothing.
you? Yeah.
So, Refused. This is another album that makes me sad. And this one has a little bit more interesting of like why we're reviewing it. So last week when Vincent said we had to review something bad, I immediately threw out
If you were paying attention,
Sum 41.
Yeah.
But I decided, Vincent decided not to do that one. So this is my backup.
Honestly, I'm kind of glad I'm doing this instead of Sum 41.
Fuck Sum 41. That was terrible.
At least like I didn't know what to expect. And I knew it wasn't going to be good.
Yeah.
But
So I threw this one out there, and this one made me not sad when I listened to it, but it made me sad when I actually remembered what this band made before and used to be. Because I had kind of low-key forgotten about Refused for a little while. Anyway, I'll get into like why this makes me sad later, and I'll complete this little story.
okay.
So, Refused is a Swedish hardcore punk / post-hardcore band. They have very, very leftist political themes. They have a great like anthem about like coming out of the closet and being true to yourself, like if you're like gay or trans or any like just any part of the LGBTIAQ plus community. I feel like I got like the last three numbers in the incorrect order.
There's like a 9 in there somewhere,
yeah,
I think.
but like I got them all. I got all the letters, so like it's fine. But like I just think I put them in the wrong order. They formed in 1991 by Dennis. I could never Lyxzén. It's spelled Lyxze with a little hyphen in. He's their vocals. This band formed, by the way, by like a bunch of members from like various other bands within the Swedish like underground like music scene, but all were from like different parts of the scene. So like they would like sometimes be at the same venues and play with each other. But apparently like back then like their like underground scene was like very like separated. Like you couldn't like cross mingle. Like you could be in the same area, but you weren't supposed to like work directly with each other or like be like directly associated. Like you could be around each other and you'd be friendly, but you weren't allowed to like be with each other.
Yeah.
But this band was kind of formed like a bunch of bands, like members of like the version were like, this is fucking stupid. Like let's just work together and form like our own band. And so Dennis Lyxzén, I'm just gonna call him Dennis, who was the vocalist for a punk straight edge band, and then David Sandstrom, the Rude Sandstorm.
Damn it, you took my joke.
Who was the drummer for a death metal band. They're the two main members of Refused formed a band together. They did a handful of EPs, made their debut album, like studio full-length album, with This Just Might Be the Truth, which was released in 1994. They followed that up with an album of little to no concern. Because it was just This Might Be the Truth again.
Yeah.
Which was a very passable, very solid like band like album for like the turning point from like original hardcore to like post-hardcore, where the vocals are getting like borderline on the like screamo territory. The instrumentation is becoming more metal like influenced and punk influenced. It was like a very solid release, and like they're a good representation of like that turning point. It's not my favorite era of hardcore by any stretch of the imagination, but for that era, they were one of the better examples of it. Then they released 1998's The Shape of Punk to Come, which was very different from those two. It incorporated elements of electronica and jazz and ambient and like world music. It just like took a bunch of like other things and like mixed it in there, and it fucking bombed. It was a critical and commercial failure upon release, like across the board. Like people didn't know what to make of it. A lot of like people who reviewed it back then refused to even give it a number because it was like so weird and different from everything they made before. They didn't know really how to take it. And so coupling that with the fact that their next like tour that they did after that was terrible. They had like terrible shows across the board. They were constantly fighting. Their final show was shut down after 4 songs by police because they had just started fighting with themselves and the audience so much that like they just had to shut it down. And then like obviously with all of this creative differences, the fact that they felt like they were running out of energy and just how much they just didn't like being around each other, it seemed like they broke up. Then they announced it by like putting on like their label like a open letter that was titled "Refused Are Fucking Dead." However, after they had broken up and people started like the legend of like their final like concert was like gaining like notoriety from the punk communities outside of their like small group, people started like reevaluating the band as a whole, and in particular their last album, and kind of coming to this like realization like this is actually like a really fucking good album. And it is. It's their last album is a fucking amazing like post-hardcore album. It's got a lot of like experimentation, great like post-hardcore like vocals and like instrumentation. It's a fucking good album that like works like shockingly well for how much different shit is pulling into it and like working together. It's a great album. I love that album. Which is why this album is really sad, because like I said, like, I kind of forgot about them because like it's a great album, but it's an album I just kind of forget about a bunch because it's when I'm listening to a punk album, I usually just go for like a pure punk album. Unless I'm listening to experimental album, I go for a pure experimental album. I don't really listen to like this like fusion of the two that often, so I just kind of it stays off my radar like when I'm re-listening to things quite a bit. Until I like was actually like going through this and I was like, oh yeah, I really like that album and I really loved this album and like these were great albums for like when they came out and what they were. These are fucking fantastic. And then I would keep remembering just how mediocre this album is. Because I didn't even listen.
Let me rephrase it. It's not mediocre. This new album,
It's
music.
bad. It's not. It's not mediocre.
It's a bad
terrible.
album.
It's a bad album.
It's like, let's just get this straight.
It's a bad album.
It's a bad album.
It sounds like reject songs from like early WWE 2K games.
I don't
mixed with fucking like hair metal.
I don't get that because there's some fucking bangers in some of these WWE games.
I said reject songs. I mean, these are the ones that couldn't make the pass. Like even comparing like the lowest of the low of the songs on this thing, these were the rejects. And there's like weird things that they're doing that sound like hair metal. Like they're constantly going like, "Come on!" and like, "Yeah!" There's like, wow, I didn't realize fucking Guns N' Roses made a tribute and showed up on your fucking album. Like Jesus Christ.
Yeah, this is
It's bad.
Dennis is just.
Dennis needs to go back to screaming.
He's not good. He's not good at screaming. He's not good at.
He used to be good at screaming.
I don't know him. This is my first introduction to him, and he seems just bad. He seems like he can't maintain a pitch. He's forcing everything, and I feel really worried for him because if you do that, you ruin your voice, and it seems like he's ruining his voice.
I think he is because like
it's not
his screams don't sound close to what they used to sound like. And the way his like clean vocals sound are very different from how his clean vocals used to sound.
Yeah.
Like there's like, I can't tell if it's because he's trying things that he shouldn't be trying, or if it's like his voice like has genuinely been like changed by like damage or whatever. But his vocals sound really bad, and like that's within the genre of post-hardcore, which has some of like the worst vocals.
Yeah.
Of like any punk genre.
This thing's overtly edgy.
Yeah.
The guitars on this are sometimes really interesting sounding, but they try to do a bunch of effects and distortion on them, and I think it's I Want to Watch the World Burn. I think it's that track. I may be wrong on this, where they put like a phaser on it, and it's really fucking annoying.
There's just for how like influential like The Shape of Punk to Come would be, because you can see its influence like on pretty much everything that came after in the post-hardcore scene. This is like so dated and not forward thinking. This is very backwards thinking. This sounds really
sounds
old.
like just like the Slipknot album we listened to earlier this year. The what was the other one? The Korn album we listened to earlier this year. There's nothing different.
Yeah,
from
like
this.
it's not even like, at least like with Korn and Slipknot, they sounded like the old work of that band itself. This doesn't even sound like the old work of this band. This sounds like a band who like is trying to imitate all the people who came after it.
Yeah.
But like not for now, for like just like 5 years afterwards.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that that album that was influential came out like 2 decades ago.
Yeah. There's weirdly a large amount of new metal influence on this.
Yeah.
Which new metal when it has character can sometimes be ironically.
It's at least fun.
Yeah, it could be
usually.
fun.
But like there's nothing in this album that's fun or interesting.
Yeah.
And sometimes it just straight up pisses me off. Like when they did Damage Free, which is like a very clear reference to Black Flag, who did two like, so in their first like their debut like full album was called Damage and had 2 tracks, Damage 1 and Damage 2. They never had a Damage Free. They have no other damaged songs. Like there is nothing that this can be other than like it's like we're continuing the Damaged saga, which okay, fuck you for multiple reasons. One, Damaged, like the 2 Damaged songs are very clearly like based on Henry Rollins' like personal life. You know, like the shit that happened in his past that made him fucked up. Like to act like we can continue his story is really fucking like obnoxious, because like Henry Rollins is Henry Rollins. Like don't tell his story. Nothing in that track sounds like anything Black Flag has ever made. Those 2 Black Flag songs are fucking fantastic. None of the themes are like continued on. None of the like storytelling techniques from the 2 like tracks are carried on. There's literally nothing from that song that makes it sound like it's a continuation of Black Flag.
Yeah.
In any way, shape, or form what they stand for and sound like and just do beyond the title.
Yeah. Revolution 1, it really wants to be Bring Me the Horizon.
Yeah. And that's what I was saying. It was like that era of post-hardcore, like the Bring Me the Horizon, like that type of stuff. it so badly wants to be that shit.
Yeah.
But it can't.
Yeah.
Like, at all. Like, I don't even like that stuff that much.
It can
be
catchy sometimes.
It's catchy. It can be
but-
fun. It's never something I really want to listen to.
Yeah.
Max loves that stuff. And even she was like, what the fuck is this?
Revolution 1 talking about, we need one more revolution or something.
Revolution 1.
Yeah, it's bad. I Want to Watch the World Burn is one of the most edgy songs I've heard in a while.
Yeah.
It makes XXS Tentacion look like a saint.
It's like, and they're not even referencing the relevant Joker anymore. This is Heath Ledger Joker. We moved on. We're at Joaquin Phoenix Joker society. Now.
It's like that. The amount of angst is so, like, even with some of the angstiest emo rappers today, like Juice WRLD and Trippie Redd, they look comparable. Like, they look like sane compared to these.
Yeah. It's just
these lines.
Yeah. Like, they had some, lyrically speaking, like, they had some really, like, thoughtful, like, well thought out leftist, like, themes, leftist politics that they, like, explored very effectively in their old work. And, like, yeah, it has, like, the punk, like, edginess factor the same way, like, Subhumans.
It's edgy, but it's not political.
Yeah.
It's not, like, even reflective. It's just edgy.
This is just edgy.
This is 93
like, I was saying their
punk.
old stuff, like, was like...
No, I was
oh.
just reflecting on this.
I was talking about their old stuff, like how like this is just like a step down, because like, their old stuff, like it had like the punk edge, because it's punk. Of course, it fucking has edge.
Yeah.
If it didn't have edge, it wouldn't really be punk anymore.
Yeah, and if it had CM, it'd be perfect.
But I mean, he was a straight edge punk band beforehand. But like it had like edge, but like it had like thought and character and like a clear like sense of like a point beyond just like revolution and I'm so edgy. I wrote the anarchy symbol on my backpack in a red pen when I was in middle school, which is what this shit sounds like. It used to sound like, yeah, I've actually like thought about politics and like I have an idea and like I've a belief that I believe in and something that we should be striving towards. This just sounds like anarchy pisses off my parents, so I'm gonna be an anarchist. And that's coming from an anarchist. It's like it's just bad.
Yeah. Keep in mind those scores if you tell me this right now I'm filling up. Is it even worth rating out of 10? Because I don't think it is.
Not real. We've rated one album this like an actual number this week.
I gave it middle of the road. I didn't give anything this week.
Oh shit!
Because I was phoning it in.
I actually gave one.
I don't think scores really matter this week.
No, scores don't matter. This week makes me really sad because like I love Subhumans and I didn't expect it to be good and it was okay. It was actually probably better than I thought it was going to be, to be honest. I expected so much out of Heavy Lungs. And then I knew Refuse was going to be bad, but then I remembered how good they used to be, and it just made me sad.
And if you also want to be sad, but on social media, you can follow us at Anthony and Todd on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. If you want to find us on YouTube, youtube.com/The Anthony and Todd Show. If you want to listen to this show in audio form, you can find us on podcast services such as...
But then you'll miss all the Pennywise pictures.
No, I think it's kind of... Oh, I forgot to put those in the other reviews.
Yeah, you already failed because you weren't able to do it for the other two albums.
Well.
You can make up for it by doing it at least 3 times during the Lighthouse review.
No, I think I'm good. Maybe one was enough for 1 week.
Pitch plug in the Is It a Film?
You can find Is It a Film, our podcast, also on podcast services such as Google Play Podcast, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Just search the Anthony and Todd Show, get the best of both worlds, film and music reviews. You can also find Is It a Film on youtube.com/Is It a Film. And you can support us on Patreon, patreon.com/Anthony and Todd Show. So I can buy a banana boat, which Trevor and me discussed is the actual long jet ski.
Is it a banana boat?
Yeah, he proved me wrong.
So we're going to get a banana boat now.
Yeah, and put a motor on the back. And until next time, guys, I am Vincent.
And I'm sad.
And here's a musical outro. I forgot to do it, but I'm gonna do it now. So it's almost seamless.
Seamless
outro.